I never thought Christmas Eve would be the night I'd discover my own brother had been sabotaging my life while planning to steal my inheritance. As I sit here now, 6 months later, watching Marcus pack his belongings into a U-Haul truck, I can still hear the sound of his voice cracking when he begged me not to press charges. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I'm 26 years old. 8 months ago, I thought I was a failure living in my childhood bedroom after my ex-fiancé Jake emptied our joint accounts and disappeared with my best friend. What I didn't know was that my own brother had been actively destroying my life from the inside, and that everything I believed about my situation was built on lies carefully constructed by the people I trusted most. The story begins not 8 months ago, but 3 years earlier, when my father had his first heart attack. I was living in Boston then, working for a marketing firm, and engaged to Jake Stevens, a charming investment advisor who seemed to have his life perfectly planned out. When Dad collapsed during one of Tyler's soccer games, I rushed home immediately, terrified that I might lose him. Dad survived, but the 2 weeks he spent in intensive care changed our family forever. During his recovery, he signed what he thought were routine medical and financial documents that would allow Marcus to handle his affairs if something happened again. What Dad didn't realize was that Marcus had included papers that went far beyond emergency medical decisions. Marcus has always been the golden child, and those 2 weeks only reinforced his position as the family's protector and decision-maker. At 31, he's a successful investment banker with Hamilton and Associates, one of Hartford's most prestigious firms. He drives a silver BMW M5, lives in a 6,000-square-foot colonial in West Hartford's most exclusive neighborhood, and has a pregnant wife named Sarah who looks like she stepped out of a country club catalog. But behind his perfect facade, Marcus has been harboring a secret resentment that would eventually explode into something unforgivable. Even as children, he resented what he saw as my special treatment. While he was expected to excel academically and athletically, I was praised for simply trying my best. When he brought home straight A's, our parents smiled and said they were proud. When I brought home B's and C's, they celebrated like I'd won the Nobel Prize. The resentment grew when I chose art and marketing over the business track Marcus had recommended. It festered when I moved to Boston for a job that paid half what his entry-level position offered. And it reached a boiling point when Jake and I got engaged, because it meant another person would be joining the family who might compete for our parents' attention and resources. What I didn't know at the time was that Marcus had been quietly positioning himself as the family's financial advisor. He convinced Mom and Dad to let him manage their retirement accounts, arguing that his expertise in investment banking made him the obvious choice. He slowly took control of more and more aspects of their financial lives, always with their grateful consent. When Jake destroyed my life, and I came home broken and defeated, Marcus saw an opportunity to eliminate what he viewed as competition for our parents' resources. But his plan was far more sophisticated and cruel than I could have imagined. The first sign something was wrong came in early November, about 6 weeks after I'd moved back home. I had interviewed for a marketing position at Patterson and Associates, a mid-sized firm in downtown Hartford. The interview went incredibly well. Jennifer Patterson, the company's founder, and I had immediate chemistry. We talked for 2 hours about marketing strategy, digital campaigns, and the future of the industry. Rebecca, I have to tell you, this is the best interview I've had in months, Jennifer said as we wrapped up. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been looking for someone exactly like you for this position. Someone with your combination of creativity and analytical skills is rare. Thank you so much, I said, feeling genuinely excited about a job prospect for the first time in months. I'm very interested in the position. Good, because I'm very interested in offering it to you. I need to run it by my business partner, but that's just a formality. Expect a call from me by Friday with an official offer. I left the interview feeling lighter than I had in months. Finally, something was going my way. I drove home with the windows down despite the November chill, singing along to the radio for the first time since Jake had destroyed my life. When I got home, I found Marcus in the kitchen, making himself a sandwich. He was still in his work clothes, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. How did the interview go? He asked, though something in his tone suggested he already knew. Really well, I said, unable to contain my excitement. I think I got the job. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's great, Rebecca. What's the company called again? Patterson and Associates. They're a marketing firm downtown. Marcus said, taking a bite of his sandwich. I think I know that name. Didn't they have some financial troubles a couple years ago? I don't think so, I said, my excitement dimming slightly. Jennifer seemed very successful. Jennifer Patterson, right? Yeah, I remember now. There were some rumors about client funds being mismanaged. Nothing proven, but you know how these small firms can be. Marcus, don't do that, I said. Don't try to rain on my parade. I'm not trying to rain on anything. I'm just looking out for you. You've been through enough already. The last thing you need is to get involved with a company that might not be around in 6 months. You don't know anything about this company, I said, my voice rising. I know plenty about small marketing firms, Marcus replied coolly. I work with dozens of them in my investment banking role. Most of them are undercapitalized and poorly managed. Well, this one seems different. I hope so, Marcus said, but his tone suggested otherwise. For your sake. Friday came and went, with no call from Jennifer. I waited until Monday, then called her office. Patterson and Associates? This is Jennifer, came the familiar voice. Hi Jennifer, this is Rebecca Martinez. We spoke last Thursday about the marketing position? There was a pause. Oh, Rebecca, yes. I'm sorry I haven't called you back. Unfortunately, we've decided to go with another candidate. My heart sank. Oh. Okay. Can I ask, what changed? I thought our interview went really well. Another pause, longer this time. Rebecca, can I ask you something? Did you have someone call our office claiming to be your former supervisor? My blood went cold. No, absolutely not. Why would you ask that? Well, someone called on Friday claiming to be David Morrison from Morrison Marketing in Boston. They said you had been fired for stealing client information and that you were currently under investigation for corporate espionage. That's completely false, I said, my voice rising. David Morrison would never say that because it never happened. I left Morrison Marketing on good terms for personal reasons. I figured as much when I called Morrison Marketing directly and spoke to the real David Morrison. He gave you a glowing reference and said he'd never received any call about you. Relief flooded through me. So the job is still available? It is, if you want it. But, Rebecca, someone really doesn't want you to get this job. Do you have any idea who might do something like that? I did have an idea, and it made me sick to my stomach. I think I do. Jennifer, can I ask what number the fake call came from? Let me check my call log, she said. I heard her typing. It came from 86055500147. I knew that number. It was Marcus's direct line at Hamilton and Associates. After I hung up with Jennifer, I sat in my car in the parking lot of the coffee shop where I'd made the call, trying to process what I'd just learned. My own brother had actively sabotaged my job interview. He had called my potential employer and lied about me, trying to destroy what might have been my path back to independence. But why? What did he gain from keeping me unemployed and dependent on our parents? I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through possibilities. When I walked into the house, I found Marcus in the living room, playing with Tyler and Emma, while Sarah sat nearby, rubbing her pregnant belly. Rebecca! Emma ran up to me with a drawing. Look what I made for you. That's beautiful, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile while my mind churned with anger. How was your day? Sarah asked. Any good news on the job front? I looked at Marcus, who was building a tower of blocks with Tyler. He glanced up at me with what looked like genuine concern. Actually, yes, I said slowly. I got offered a position at Patterson and Associates. Marcus's face brightened. That's wonderful news. Congratulations. His performance was so convincing that for a moment I doubted what Jennifer had told me, but then I remembered the phone number. Thanks, I said. It's funny though. The strangest thing happened. Someone called them, pretending to be my former boss, and tried to sabotage me. I watched Marcus's face carefully. There was the slightest tightening around his eyes, a barely perceptible tension in his jaw. That's terrible, he said. Do they know who it was? They have the phone number, I said. I'm sure they'll figure it out. Well, I hope they catch whoever did it, Marcus said, turning back to Tyler's blocks. Some people have no shame. That evening, after Marcus and his family had gone home, I sat down with Mom and Dad in the kitchen. I needed to understand what was happening, but I also needed to be careful. If Marcus was manipulating them too, I couldn't trust everything they told me. Mom, Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course, honey, Mom said. What is it? Has Marcus said anything to you about my job search? About how long I've been here? Mom and Dad exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. Rebecca, Dad said carefully, Marcus has expressed some concerns about your situation. What kind of concerns? He thinks you might be getting too comfortable here, Mom said gently. He's worried that we're enabling you instead of encouraging you to rebuild your independence. And what do you think? I asked. We think you're doing the best you can under difficult circumstances, Dad said. But Marcus makes a good point about not letting this become permanent. Have you talked about asking me to leave? Another look between them. We've discussed setting some goals and timelines, Mom admitted. Nothing concrete, just making sure we're all on the same page about expectations. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Marcus wasn't just sabotaging my job search, he was also working on our parents, gradually turning them against me. I see, I said quietly. And whose idea was it to have those discussions? Marcus brought it up, Dad said. But only because he cares about you. He thinks structure might help you feel more motivated. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. I'm sure he does. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything I'd learned. Marcus wasn't just being cruel or jealous. He was executing a systematic campaign to isolate me and turn our parents against me. The question was why. The next morning, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I waited until Marcus left for work, then called his office. Hamilton and Associates, how may I direct your call? Hi, I'm trying to reach Marcus Martinez. I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez is in meetings all morning. May I take a message? Actually, I was hoping to verify some information. I'm calling from Patterson and Associates. We received a reference call from this number yesterday about Rebecca Martinez, and I wanted to confirm it came from your office. Oh, that's strange. We don't typically provide references for non-clients. Let me check with Mr. Martinez's assistant. I was put on hold for several minutes. Ma'am, I spoke with Mr. Martinez's assistant, and she has no record of any reference calls being made from this office. Are you sure you have the right number? Very sure, I said. The call definitely came from 860-555-0147. That is Mr. Martinez's direct line. This is very concerning. I'm going to need to report this to our compliance department. I understand, I said. Thank you for your help. I hung up feeling satisfied. Marcus's own company was now aware that someone had used his phone to make fraudulent calls. Even if I couldn't prove it was him, it would certainly cause him problems. But I wasn't done investigating. If Marcus was sabotaging my job search, I needed to know how extensive the damage was. I spent the next 2 days calling every company where I'd had an interview or submitted an application over the past few months. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. 5 different companies had received negative reference calls about me. 3 more had received anonymous tips about my history of instability and poor work performance. One hiring manager told me that someone had actually shown up at their office claiming to be a former colleague of mine, warning them that I was dangerous and untrustworthy. By Thursday afternoon, I had documented 8 separate instances of sabotage, all traceable back to Marcus or his associates. I had names, dates, phone numbers, and in one case, security camera footage of someone who looked remarkably like Marcus's business partner visiting a company where I'd interviewed, but I still didn't understand his motivation. What did he gain from destroying my career prospects? Why was he so determined to keep me unemployed and dependent? The answer came from an unexpected source. Tyler. I was babysitting Marcus's kids on Thursday evening while he and Sarah went to a doctor's appointment. Tyler, who's 4 years old, has no filter and tends to repeat everything he hears. Aunt Rebecca, he said while we were coloring, Daddy says you're going to have to move away soon. Oh really? Did he say why? Because Grandma and Grandpa don't have enough money to take care of you anymore. I kept coloring, trying to keep my voice casual. Did Daddy say anything else about that? He said, when you move away, we can come live in Grandma and Grandpa's house, because our house is too expensive. Everything clicked into place. Marcus wasn't just trying to get rid of me out of spite. He was planning to move his family into our parents' house to save money. My presence was an obstacle to his plan. But there was still something that didn't make sense. Our parents' house is nice, but it's not nearly as luxurious as Marcus's current home. Why would he want to downgrade unless he was having serious financial problems? That weekend, I decided to do some more detective work. I knew Marcus was working on Saturday morning, so I drove to his neighborhood and parked across the street from his house. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I had a feeling that his perfect life wasn't as perfect as it appeared. I didn't have to wait long. At 10 a.m., a red Ferrari pulled into Marcus's driveway. A man in an expensive suit got out and walked to the front door. Sarah answered, and I could see her gesturing frantically. The conversation looked heated. 20 minutes later, the man left, but not before placing what looked like an official document on Marcus's front porch. After he drove away, Sarah came out to get the paper. Even from across the street, I could see that her hands were shaking. That evening, I got a call from Sarah. Rebecca, I need to talk to you, she said, her voice thick with tears. What's wrong? Can you meet me somewhere? I can't talk at home. We met at a Starbucks near her house. Sarah looked terrible. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she kept twisting her wedding ring around her finger. Sarah, what's going on? Marcus is going to kill me for telling you this, she said, but I don't know what else to do. Telling me what? We're broke, Rebecca. Worse than broke. We're about to lose everything. I stared at her. What are you talking about? Marcus makes great money. He does. But he's also been making terrible investments. He's been using our house as collateral for increasingly risky deals. We owe almost $800,000 to some very dangerous people. $800,000? The man who came to the house today was one of Marcus's business partners. He said if we don't pay back what we owe by Christmas, they're going to take the house and everything in it. Sarah, why are you telling me this? Because Marcus has a plan to get the money, and it involves your parents. My blood ran cold. What kind of plan? He's been convincing them to refinance their house to help us out. He told them it was just a temporary loan, but, Rebecca, we can't pay it back. If they refinance their house to help us, they'll lose it too. Jesus Christ, Sarah. There's more. Marcus has been creative with his power of attorney documents. He's been telling your parents that certain financial decisions are routine, but they're actually signing over more control than they realize. What do you mean? I mean, he's been gradually transferring assets into accounts that he controls. Not stealing exactly, but positioning himself to make decisions about your parents' money without their full understanding. I felt sick. How long has this been going on? Since your dad's heart attack. Marcus saw an opportunity and took it. And you've known about this the whole time? Sarah's face crumpled. I suspected, but I didn't want to believe it. I was pregnant with Tyler when it started, and Marcus convinced me that he was just being proactive about family financial planning. But you know better now. I know that if your parents refinance their house to help us, we'll all be homeless by next summer. Sarah, you have to help me stop this. I can't. If Marcus finds out I told you any of this, I don't know what he'll do. He'll what? Sarah, is Marcus threatening you? She didn't answer, but the fear in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. I drove home that night with my mind racing. Marcus wasn't just sabotaging my job search out of sibling rivalry. He was systematically destroying my life as part of a larger plan to steal our parents' house and savings. My unemployment wasn't a byproduct of his cruelty. It was a strategic necessity. As long as I was dependent on our parents, they would be reluctant to make major financial decisions. But if I was out of the picture, Marcus could convince them that helping him was their only option. But I still had questions. How far was Marcus willing to go to get what he wanted? And what exactly had he already taken from our parents? The answers came the next Monday morning when I intercepted the mail before Mom and Dad woke up. There was an envelope from First National Bank addressed to them. Inside was a letter confirming their appointment to sign refinancing documents on December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve. The refinancing was for $250,000, almost certainly more than our parents' house was worth. If they signed those papers, they would be giving Marcus control of their only significant asset. I had to stop this, but I needed more information first. That afternoon, while Mom and Dad were at their book club, I searched through their home office. What I found made me furious. Hidden in a folder marked tax documents were dozens of papers that Dad had signed over the past 3 years. Most of them looked routine, but when I read them carefully, I realized that Marcus had been systematically transferring control of their finances to himself. He was now the beneficiary on their life insurance policies. He had power of attorney over their investment accounts. He was listed as a co-owner on their savings account. If something happened to them, Marcus would inherit everything, and I would get nothing. But the most damning document was one I almost missed. Tucked behind their homeowner's insurance policy was a preliminary deed transfer document that would give Marcus ownership of the house upon Dad's death. It was dated just 2 months after Dad's heart attack, when he was still recovering and probably not thinking clearly about what he was signing. I photographed everything with my phone, then put the documents back exactly where I'd found them. I needed to be strategic about how I handled this. If I confronted Marcus directly, he would deny everything and probably accelerate his timeline. If I told our parents without proof, he would convince them that I was jealous and unstable. But I had another option. Sarah had given me enough information to understand Marcus's financial situation. If he was as desperate as she claimed, he would be vulnerable to pressure. That evening, I called Marcus at home. "Rebecca, what's up?" he answered, his voice casual and friendly. "I need to talk to you about Mom and Dad's refinancing." There was a pause. "What refinancing?" "The one scheduled for December 23rd, the one where they're signing over $250,000 to help you pay off your gambling debts." Longer pause. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the shit, Marcus. Sarah told me everything." "Sarah doesn't know what she's talking about. She's been emotional because of the pregnancy. She told me about the $800,000 you owe. She told me about the threats. She told me about your plan to steal Mom and Dad's house." "I'm not stealing anything. I'm trying to keep this family together." "By lying to our parents about legal documents? By transferring their assets into your name? By sabotaging my job search so I can't become independent?" "You don't understand the situation, Rebecca. Our family is in crisis, and I'm the only one trying to solve it." "Our family is in crisis because you created the crisis. You made bad investments with money you didn't have, and now you're trying to steal from our parents to cover your mistakes." "I'm not stealing from anyone. Everything I've done has been to protect this family's assets." "Protect them?" "Marcus, you've been systematically transferring ownership of everything to yourself. You're not protecting our parents. You're setting them up to lose everything they've worked for." "You're paranoid, Rebecca, and you're jealous because Mom and Dad trust me with important decisions instead of you." "I'm jealous? Marcus, I found the documents. I know about the life insurance beneficiary changes. I know about the power of attorney extensions. I know about the preliminary deed transfer." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long that I thought he might have hung up. "Marcus? What do you want?" His voice was different now, colder and more calculating. "I want you to cancel the refinancing. I want you to stop lying to our parents, and I want you to transfer everything back to them. And if I don't, then I'll expose everything. I'll show them the documents. I'll tell them about your debts. I'll call the bank and explain that their clients are being manipulated by someone with a conflict of interest." "You can't prove anything, can't I?" "I have photos of all the documents. I have a recording of this conversation. And I have Sarah, who's ready to testify about your financial situation." "Sarah won't say anything. She has too much to lose." "Maybe, but are you willing to bet everything on that?" Marcus was quiet for another long moment. "Rebecca, you don't understand how serious this situation is. The people I owe money to aren't the kind of people who accept payment plans. If I don't come up with the money by Christmas, they're going to hurt my family." "Then you should have thought of that before you made the bets." "I was trying to make enough money to secure our future. I was trying to build something for Emma and Tyler. You were trying to get rich quick, and you were willing to risk everyone else's security to do it." "So what's your solution? Let my family become homeless? Let dangerous people threaten my wife and children?" My solution is for you to face the consequences of your own actions instead of destroying everyone else's life. Easy for you to say. You don't have children depending on you. No, but I have parents who depend on the security you're trying to steal from them. Marcus was quiet again, and when he spoke, his voice was desperate. Rebecca, what if we could work something out? What if there was a way for everyone to win? I'm listening. What if I could guarantee that Mom and Dad would get their money back? What if this was just a temporary loan? How would you guarantee that? I have insurance policies, other assets. If my current investments don't work out, I could liquidate everything else to pay them back. Marcus, you just told me that you owe $800,000 to dangerous people. What assets could you possibly have that would cover that, plus the money you want to borrow from our parents? There are things you don't know about, Rebecca. Trust me, I can make this work. Trust you? Marcus, you've been lying to me and our parents for years. You sabotaged my job search. You've been manipulating them into signing documents they don't understand. Why the hell would I trust you? Because I'm your brother, and despite everything, I love you. You have a funny way of showing it. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you, but I was desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. Sabotaging my career wasn't a mistake, Marcus. It was a deliberate, sustained attack. You didn't just hurt me, you tried to destroy my future. I was trying to create urgency. I thought if you were forced to be more aggressive about finding work, you'd become independent faster. Bullshit. You were trying to keep me dependent so that our parents wouldn't make major financial decisions. You needed me to be a burden so that helping you would seem like the better option. Maybe that's true, Marcus admitted, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm in serious trouble now and I need help. Then get help from someone other than our parents. There is no one else, Rebecca. You're my last hope. I'm not your hope, Marcus. I'm your victim. And I'm done being victimized. So you're just going to let me lose everything? I'm going to protect our parents from losing everything. What happens to you is your problem. Rebecca, please. I'm begging you. Give me a chance to make this right. You've had 3 years to make this right. Instead, you've made it worse. 1 month. Give me 1 month to figure out another solution. No. 2 weeks? Marcus, I'm calling the bank tomorrow morning to cancel the refinancing appointment. I'm also calling Mom and Dad's financial advisor to review all the documents you've had them sign. This ends now. If you do that, my family will be destroyed. Your family is already being destroyed by you. Rebecca, I'm warning you. If you interfere with this, there will be consequences. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you that you don't understand all the factors involved. There are other people with interests in this situation. What other people? The people I owe money to. They're not going to just disappear if this deal falls through. That's still your problem, not mine. It becomes your problem if they decide to collect from other members of my family. I felt a chill run down my spine. Are you saying they would go after Mom and Dad? I'm saying that desperate people do unpredictable things. Marcus, if you've put our parents in danger because of your gambling debts, I swear to God, I haven't put anyone in danger. But if I can't pay what I owe, I can't control what happens next. Then you better find another way to get the money. There is no other way. Then you should have thought of that before you made the bets. I hung up, my hands shaking with anger and fear. Marcus had essentially admitted that he'd been manipulating our parents, but he'd also implied that they might be in physical danger if his plan fell through. I didn't know if he was bluffing, but I couldn't take the risk. I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. The next morning, I drove to downtown Hartford and walked into the offices of Patterson and Associates. Jennifer Patterson greeted me warmly and led me to her private office. Rebecca, what can I do for you? Jennifer, I need advice, and I'm hoping you might be able to help me or point me in the right direction. Of course! What's going on? I told her everything. The sabotage, the document manipulation, the refinancing scheme, even Marcus's implied threats. Jennifer listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and whistled softly. Rebecca, this is a lot more serious than employment sabotage. What you're describing sounds like elder abuse, financial fraud, and possibly extortion. I know it's serious, but I don't know what to do about it. If I go to the police, Marcus might panic and do something desperate. If I don't do anything, my parents could lose everything. What you need is a lawyer who specializes in elder abuse and financial crimes. I know just the person. Jennifer picked up her phone and dialed a number. David? It's Jennifer Patterson. I have a potential client here who needs your help with what sounds like a complex family financial fraud case. Yes, it's urgent. Can you see her today? She hung up and smiled at me. David Morrison is one of the best financial crimes attorneys in Connecticut. He can see you at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you, Jennifer. I don't know how to repay you for this. Just promise me you'll be careful. If your brother is as desperate as you think he is, he might be dangerous. That afternoon, I sat in David Morrison's office and went through everything again. David was a tall, silver-haired man in his 50s who had the kind of calm, authoritative presence that made you feel like everything would be okay. Rebecca, based on what you've told me, I believe your brother has committed several serious crimes. The document manipulation alone could be charged as elder abuse and financial fraud. The threats could be extortion. But can we prove it? We can certainly try. The documents you photographed are evidence of financial manipulation. The recording of your phone conversation could be evidence of extortion, and if we can get your sister-in-law to testify about his financial situation and methods, we might have a strong case. What about protecting my parents in the meantime? We need to move quickly to prevent the refinancing. I can contact the bank today and explain that your parents may be victims of financial manipulation. I can also help you get protective orders if necessary.
And if Marcus retaliates?
That's where things get complicated. If he's really involved with dangerous people, we need to take that seriously. But we can't let the threat of retaliation prevent us from protecting your parents. What do you recommend? I recommend that we move forward carefully but decisively. We document everything. We protect your parents' assets, and we prepare for the possibility that your brother might escalate his behavior. Okay, let's do it. David worked quickly. By the end of the day, he had contacted First National Bank and convinced them to postpone the refinancing, pending a review of the circumstances. He had also contacted Adult Protective Services to report suspected elder abuse. But Marcus's response was swift and vicious. That evening, I got a call from Sarah. Rebecca, I can't talk long. Marcus knows I talked to you. How does he know? He figured it out when the bank called to postpone the refinancing. He's furious. Sarah, are you safe? I think so, for now. But Rebecca, he's planning something. He's been making phone calls all evening, and I heard him say your name several times. What kind of phone calls? I don't know, but they didn't sound friendly. Sarah, you and the kids need to get out of there. I can't. I have nowhere to go, and I'm 7 months pregnant. Come stay with me and our parents. Marcus would never allow that. Marcus doesn't get to allow or disallow anything. Sarah, if you think you're in danger, you need to leave. I'm scared, Rebecca. I'm scared of what he might do. Then let me help you. I can't. I have to go. Marcus is coming back upstairs. She hung up, and I immediately called David Morrison. David, I think my brother might be planning to retaliate against his wife for talking to me. Rebecca, if you think someone is in immediate danger, you need to call the police. I will, but I wanted to let you know what was happening. I called 911 and explained the situation. They said they would send a car to do a welfare check on Sarah and the children. An hour later, I got a call from a police officer. Ms. Martinez? This is Officer Johnson with Hartford PD. We did a welfare check at the address you provided. Mrs. Martinez said she was fine and didn't need assistance. Did you talk to her alone? Her husband was present during our conversation. Officer, I'm concerned that she might have been afraid to speak honestly with him there. We understand your concern, but we can't force someone to accept help if they say they don't need it. I hung up feeling frustrated and helpless. Sarah was clearly too scared to ask for help, and the police couldn't force her to leave. But Marcus wasn't done with his retaliation. The next morning, I woke up to find 2 police cars in our driveway. When I came downstairs, I found 2 officers in our living room talking to my parents. Rebecca Martinez? One of the officers asked. Yes, that's me. We have a warrant for your arrest. A warrant? For what? Criminal harassment. Making false police reports. Criminal harassment. Making false police reports. And attempted extortion. I stared at the officer in disbelief. This is insane. I haven't done any of those things. Ma'am, we have a complaint filed by Marcus Martinez claiming that you've been harassing him and his family, making false accusations to banks and government agencies, and attempting to extort money from him. My parents looked shocked and confused. Mom's hand went to her chest, and Dad stepped protectively in front of me. Officers, there must be some mistake, Dad said. Rebecca would never do anything like that. Sir, we have documentation of phone calls, recordings, and witness statements. Ma'am, you need to come with us. As they handcuffed me, I could hear Mom crying behind me. Rebecca, don't say anything until we get you a lawyer, Dad called out. The next 6 hours were a nightmare. I was processed, fingerprinted, and put in a holding cell while waiting for David Morrison to arrive. When he finally showed up, his face was grim. Rebecca, your brother has been busy. He's filed a comprehensive complaint, painting you as an unstable woman who's been harassing his family and making false accusations to damage his reputation. But everything I reported is true. I know that, and will prove it. But in the meantime, he's gotten a restraining order against you. You can't contact him, his family, or go within 500 feet of his home or workplace. How is that possible? He has documentation of your phone calls, recordings that he claims show you threatening him, and Sarah's testimony that you've been pressuring her to lie about their financial situation. Sarah testified against me? She signed an affidavit stating that you've been harassing her and trying to convince her to make false statements about Marcus. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He forced her to do that. Probably, but proving coercion is difficult. Rebecca, we need to be strategic here. Marcus is playing a much more sophisticated game than we anticipated. I was released on bail that evening, but the damage was done. My arrest had been reported in the local newspaper, identifying me as a woman who had made false accusations against her successful banker brother. My reputation was destroyed before I'd even had a chance to defend myself. When I got home, I found Mom and Dad waiting for me in the living room. They looked older than they had that morning, worn down by confusion and stress. Rebecca, we need to understand what's happening, Dad said gently. Marcus came by this afternoon. He's very concerned about you. Concerned about me? He thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. He said you've been making wild accusations about him stealing our money and threatening his family. I sat down heavily on the couch. Mom, Dad, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Marcus has been lying to you for 3 years. He's been manipulating you into signing documents that give him control of your finances. Rebecca, that's a very serious accusation, Mom said. I know it is, and I can prove it. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I'd taken of their financial documents. Look at these papers. Look at what you actually signed. Dad took my phone and scrolled through the images, his face growing paler with each document. What am I looking at, Rebecca? You're looking at power of attorney documents that give Marcus control of your investment accounts, life insurance policies that make him the beneficiary instead of both of us. A preliminary deed transfer that would give him ownership of this house when you die. Mom gasped. But these weren't what he told us we were signing. I know, he's been lying to you. Dad was quiet for a long time studying the documents. Finally, he looked up at me with a mixture of sadness and anger. If this is true, why didn't you come to us sooner? Because I just figured it out, and because I knew it would be hard to believe. Rebecca, Mom said carefully, Marcus showed us some recordings today, recordings of you threatening him. He edited those recordings, Mom. He took parts of our conversation out of context to make it sound like I was threatening him. But why would he do all this? Dad asked. Why would he lie to us and manipulate us? Because he's in serious financial trouble. He owes almost $1 million to dangerous people, and he was planning to use your house as collateral to pay them back. Mom started crying. Our house? The refinancing appointment on December 23rd. That wasn't to help with renovations like he told you. That was to get money to pay his gambling debts. Dad's face was red with anger now. Are you telling me that our son was planning to steal our home? I'm telling you that Marcus has been systematically positioning himself to control your assets. Whether he planned to steal them outright or just use them as collateral for his debts, the result would be the same. You would lose everything. But the restraining order, Mom said. If you're telling the truth, why does he have a restraining order against you? Because he's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. He knows I've figured out his plan, so he's trying to discredit me before I can expose him. Dad was quiet for several minutes, processing everything I'd told him. Rebecca, if what you're saying is true, we need proof. Real proof that will hold up in court. David Morrison is working on that. But Dad, in the meantime, you need to be very careful about what you sign. Don't sign anything else until we can sort this out. What about Christmas Eve? Mom asked. We're supposed to have dinner here tomorrow night. Marcus and Sarah and the kids will be here. I thought about the restraining order. I can't be here if Marcus is here. The restraining order prevents me from being within 500 feet of him. This is insane, Dad said. He's trying to drive you out of your own home. That's exactly what he's trying to do. The next morning, Christmas Eve, I woke up in a hotel room downtown. David Morrison had advised me to stay away from the house until we could get the restraining order challenged, which wouldn't happen until after the holidays. But around noon, I got a call that changed everything. Rebecca? It's Jennifer Patterson. Hi, Jennifer. I didn't expect to hear from you today. Rebecca, I have some information that I think you need to know. My business partner used to work for Hamilton and Associates, and he still has contacts there. Okay. Marcus was fired yesterday. I nearly dropped the phone. He was fired? Apparently the compliance department investigated the fraudulent reference calls, and they found evidence that Marcus had been using company resources for personal business. But that's not all. What else? They also found evidence that he's been embezzling client funds to cover his gambling debts. Embezzling? It looks like he's been moving money between accounts to hide the fact that he's been stealing from clients to pay his debts. The FBI is now involved. The FBI? Rebecca, your brother is in much bigger trouble than you realized. Hamilton and Associates is a major firm with high-profile clients. Embezzling from them is a federal crime. I sat down on the hotel bed, trying to process this information. Jennifer, does Marcus know that he's been fired? As of yesterday afternoon, yes. And Rebecca, there's something else. My contact says that Marcus cleaned out his office yesterday evening and that he seemed very agitated. They're concerned that he might be planning to run. Run? Disappear. Leave town before the FBI can arrest him. I immediately called David Morrison and told him what Jennifer had said. Rebecca, this changes everything. If Marcus is about to flee, he might accelerate his plans for your parents' money. We need to act fast. What can we do? I can't even go to my own house because of the restraining order. I'm going to contact the FBI and let them know about the elder abuse angle. If they're already investigating Marcus for embezzlement, they'll be interested in the document manipulation as well. And my parents? I'm going to call them directly and explain the situation. They need to know that they could be in immediate danger. An hour later, David called me back. Rebecca, I spoke with your parents. They're very frightened, but they understand the seriousness of the situation. I've advised them to contact their bank immediately and put a hold on all their accounts. What about tonight? Marcus is supposed to come for Christmas Eve dinner. Your father is going to call Marcus and cancel. He's going to tell him that your mother is feeling sick and they need to postpone the dinner. Do you think Marcus will believe that? Probably not, but it might buy us some time. But Marcus was already one step ahead of us. At 3 p.m., Dad called me in a panic. Rebecca, Marcus just showed up at the house unannounced. He says he needs to talk to us about something urgent. Dad, don't let him in. He's already in. He used his key. Dad, get out of the house, right now. I can't leave your mother. She's too scared to move. Then call 911. Marcus says if we call the police, he'll make sure we never see Emma and Tyler again. I felt sick. Dad, put me on speaker. Rebecca, I can't. Marcus doesn't know I'm talking to you. Then listen carefully. Marcus is desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. You and Mom need to get out of that house. But what about the children? What if he really does disappear with them? Dad, the children are with Sarah, and Sarah is terrified of Marcus too. If you call the police, they can protect all of you. Marcus is asking to see our financial documents. He says there's been some kind of error with the bank. Dad, do not show him any documents. Do not sign anything. He's getting angry. Rebecca, I think you're right about him being dangerous. The line went quiet, and I could hear muffled voices in the background. Dad? Dad, are you there? More muffled voices, then the sound of the phone being dropped. I immediately called 911. 911? What's your emergency? My brother is at my parents' house threatening them. I think they're in immediate danger. What's the address? I gave them the address and explained the situation as quickly as I could. Ma'am, we're dispatching units to that location now. I hung up and immediately called David Morrison. David, Marcus is at my parents' house right now. I think he's trying to force them to sign documents. I've called 911. I'm on my way there, David said. Don't go yourself, Rebecca. The restraining order means you could be arrested if you show up. The next 2 hours were agony. I sat in my hotel room waiting for news and imagining the worst. Finally, David called. Rebecca, your parents are safe. The police arrived and found Marcus trying to force your father to sign a power of attorney document that would have given him complete control of their finances. Is he arrested? He's in custody, but Rebecca, there's more. When the police searched him, they found documents showing that he had already transferred significant amounts of money from your parents' accounts. He stole from them? It looks like he's been siphoning money for months. The FBI is now treating this as part of their larger investigation. What about Sarah and the children? Sarah called the police herself when Marcus didn't come home. She's been cooperating with the investigation, and she's filed for an emergency divorce. She's leaving him? She told the FBI that Marcus has been threatening her for weeks, trying to force her to lie about their financial situation. She's been documenting his behavior, and she has recordings of him threatening to hurt her and the children if she didn't cooperate with his schemes. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. So she was gathering evidence against him? Apparently, Sarah has been working with the FBI for the past month. When Marcus started pressuring her to lie about you, she realized how dangerous he had become. She was working with the FBI? But she signed that affidavit against me. That was part of her cooperation agreement. The FBI wanted Marcus to think he was winning so that he would get careless and reveal more evidence. So she was protecting me? She was protecting everyone. Rebecca, Sarah has been terrified of Marcus for months, but she's been documenting everything to build a case against him. Christmas morning, I was finally able to go home. Mom and Dad were exhausted but relieved. We spent the morning going through their financial documents with David Morrison and FBI agents, trying to determine the extent of Marcus's theft. The final tally was shocking. Over the course of 3 years, Marcus had stolen nearly $400,000 from our parents' accounts. He had used various methods to hide the theft, including forged documents, manipulated power of attorney agreements, and electronic transfers that he covered up with false statements. But there was one more revelation that changed everything. Rebecca, Agent Sarah Martinez, no relation, said, "There's something else you need to know about your situation." What now? During our investigation of your brother's finances, we discovered that your grandmother's will was never properly executed. What do you mean? Your grandmother left instructions for a trust fund and property transfer, but the lawyer who was supposed to handle the estate died before the transfers were completed. Your parents never received the documentation they needed to complete the inheritance process. So the house isn't really mine? Actually, it's more complicated than that. Your grandmother's will specified that the property and trust should go to you, but since the proper legal procedures were never followed, the inheritance has been in limbo for 5 years. What does that mean? It means that once we complete the proper legal procedures, you'll inherit not just the house and the original trust fund, but also 5 years of accumulated interest and investment returns. How much are we talking about? Agent Martinez smiled. Approximately $1.2 million. I sat down hard in the kitchen chair. I'm a millionaire? You will be, once the paperwork is completed. Mom started crying again, but this time, they were tears of relief and joy. So Marcus was trying to steal an inheritance that was actually much larger than any of us knew? Dad asked. Exactly. If his plan had succeeded, he would have stolen not just your retirement savings, but also Rebecca's substantial inheritance. 3 months later, Marcus pled guilty to federal charges of embezzlement, elder abuse, and financial fraud. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to both his former clients and our parents. Sarah divorced him while he was awaiting sentencing. She and the children moved to California to live with her sister, taking new names and starting over completely. The restraining order against me was dropped when the FBI's investigation proved that all of my accusations against Marcus had been true. The local newspaper ran a follow-up story, apologizing for their initial coverage and explaining how Marcus had manipulated the legal system to discredit me. Jennifer Patterson offered me a job again, but by that point, I had decided to start my own consulting business using part of my inheritance. I also used some of the money to pay for therapy for the whole family, helping us process the trauma of Marcus's betrayal. Mom and Dad sold their house and moved to a smaller place in Florida, using the proceeds to supplement their retirement and travel the world like they'd always dreamed of doing. As for me, I bought a beautiful loft downtown and started dating an FBI agent I met during the investigation. Agent Mike Torres is nothing like Jake or Marcus. He's honest, straightforward, and he admires my strength rather than trying to undermine it. The most satisfying moment came 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, when I received a letter from him in prison. It was a rambling, self-pitying plea for forgiveness, filled with excuses and justifications for his behavior. I didn't respond. Instead, I framed the letter and hung it in my office as a reminder of what can happen when family loyalty becomes toxic enabling. People sometimes ask me if I miss Marcus, if I regret how everything turned out. The answer is complicated. I miss the brother I thought I had, but I've learned that person never really existed. The Marcus who sabotaged my career, manipulated our parents, and threatened his own family was the real Marcus. Everything else was just a performance. The Christmas Eve when everything exploded was the worst night of my life, but it was also the night I learned that I was strong enough to fight for myself and protect the people I love. I learned that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who are supposed to love you. But I also learned that I don't have to accept that treatment. I drive past Marcus's old house sometimes. It's been foreclosed and sold to a new family. The perfect lawn is now overgrown with weeds, and there's a rusty swing set in the backyard where Emma and Tyler used to play. I think about those children often, wondering how they're doing in California with their mother and new stepfather. Sarah sends Christmas cards with photos, and they look happy and healthy. Emma is learning to play piano, and Tyler is obsessed with dinosaurs. They have no memory of their father's crimes, and Sarah is determined to keep it that way. Marcus will be eligible for parole in 6 years. When that day comes, I'll be ready. Not for reconciliation, but to make sure he knows that if he ever threatens my family again, I'll be waiting. But for now, I'm focused on the future. I'm building a life based on truth instead of lies, surrounded by people who love me for who I am instead of what I can give them. I've learned that sometimes the most bitter gifts turn out to be the sweetest in the end, and sometimes the best revenge is simply living well while your enemies destroy themselves. The house still has that burgundy stain on the dining room carpet from the wine I threw at Marcus that Christmas Eve. I've decided to leave it there as a reminder. Sometimes the most bitter gifts turn out to be the sweetest in the end, and sometimes the best revenge is simply living well while your enemies destroy themselves. Marcus thought he could break me by taking away my opportunities. Instead, he gave me the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that I'm strong enough to stand up for myself, wealthy enough to be independent, and smart enough to know my own worth. And that, as it turns out, is worth more than any job he could have sabotaged.